entering the political delineation / city designation of Canandaigua. Another local house of tyranny. Taxpayer dollars well spent. Hey, this is Will Buchanan. I'm walking all the way across the country to New Hampshire in search of more freedom on a project called the Walk for Liberty. It's November 20th, 2008, day 197. Would attorneys be necessary in a free market justice and dispute resolution system? And just to clarify, by free market, I mean one in which the government is completely out of the picture. The short answer is no, they wouldn't be, or at least not in their current form. The way the legal system exists today, there are tens, if not hundreds of thousands of laws. All of which, apparently, you're expected by the government to know and obey. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Of course, no reasonable person can be expected to know and understand even a small fraction of the laws out there. And that's another thing, the understanding part, since all the laws are written in a language called legalese. And thus, the profession of lawyer was invented. However, there are so many laws, as well as case law, that even a single lawyer can't know them all. So a lawyer generally only practices in a very small area of the law to at least have some level of expertise in it. While it's not uncommon for someone to represent themselves in a civil dispute case, most people consider it folly to attempt to represent yourself in a criminal trial. That's because the law is so complicated and the stakes are so darn high. Since if you lose, you could get thrown into the clink for years on end. So, what would it be like in a free market system if government didn't exist? I can't claim to know exactly how a free market system would play out. But I can make some guesses based on what we know about the current system. First of all, in a pure free market system, all property would be private. There would be no one central organization, i.e. the government, claiming to have authority over everything and everyone. And because there would be no government, there would be no legislature or Congress to pass more and more laws each year. Imagine that each piece of property in the free market system would either belong to an individual or to a business. And that's not really that much of a stretch, since for the most part, that's the way it is today. So you'd have people with their houses or apartments, businesses such as Walmart, Olive Garden, Best Buy, or small mom and pop shops. The roads, which would also be owned by private companies, and other categories of property such as farms or factories. Note that all of those types of property already exist today. Except that the roads, for the most part, are currently owned by the government, whereas in that system, they would be owned by private companies. In all of those types of property, there are currently, and there still would be in the free market system, rules that you must follow if you want to remain on the property. For example, if you go over to someone's house, they might have a rule such as you're not allowed to smoke or you should take your shoes off. Businesses that you go into also have rules. For example, that you should be wearing shoes and that you're not allowed to punch other customers. Because the business wants you to come back and to continue purchasing things from them, the rules are generally common sense, and if they're not, then clearly marked. And there's no reason to think that that would be different in the absence of government. Now, I realize I've gotten a bit off the path of talking about whether lawyers would be necessary in a pure free market system. But I needed to first set up a little framework about what that free market system might look like. The point is that because in a pure free market system, people's main incentive would be to get along so that they can interact and conduct business with each other, there would be far fewer rules or laws than exist today. And there would most likely be only a very few commonly accepted rules across all companies, such as rules against theft, murder, assault, rape, or threatening to do any of those things. Basically, common sense rules against physically harming or threatening to harm another person or their property. In simple dispute cases, most people could probably represent themselves in front of a mutually agreed upon arbitrator. But if you were accused by someone of one of the more serious offenses of physically harming someone else or their property, then depending on the circumstances, you might still decide to represent yourself, or you might choose to hire someone who is skilled and experienced in logic and dealing with evidence. But that person would certainly be nothing like the lawyers and attorneys of today. There would be no need to have the years of schooling about all the laws that exist in the current legal system. And that person obviously wouldn't need to be approved by the protectionist government bar system that now exists. That's not to say, though, that there wouldn't be third-party certification companies which would rate people skilled in that job. You could choose to hire one of those third-party approved people, or, unlike today, you could have a friend represent you. So, would lawyers exist in a pure free market system? Because it would be so much simpler and more straightforward, there would be no need. And I know of only one group of people, besides the lawyers themselves, that would be sad to see them go. The people who write lawyer jokes. I walked 18.1 miles for Liberty today. Here are my GPS coordinates. If you appreciate what we're doing to spread the message of freedom on the Walk for Liberty, then please consider supporting our work by contributing to donate.walkforliberty.com. Even a donation as small as $3 makes a difference. Again, that's donate.walkforliberty.com. This is Will Buchanan, signing off.